What if everything you knew about your own existence was a lie? What if you woke up tomorrow and discovered you weren't human at all? What if a simple farm boy from nowhere could suddenly hold the power to reshape entire worlds? Today, we are diving into one of the most mind-bending science fiction stories ever told. A story about a kid who had absolutely nothing. No family, no money, no future. But then something impossible happened. An ancient artifact whispered his name. And in that single moment, his entire reality shattered. This is the kind of story that makes you question everything. How did this ordinary boy become extraordinary? What was this mysterious artifact? And why did it choose him? And most importantly, what did he have to sacrifice to accept his true destiny? The answers will shock you. They'll inspire you. And they'll make you wonder if you, too, might be hiding something incredible inside. Let me show you exactly how this happened. His name was Kale. And honestly, nobody knew him. Nobody cared about him either. Kale lived on a farm at the edge of a small village. The village didn't have a name that mattered. The farm didn't either. It was just dirt and rocks and endless work from sunrise to sunset. Every single day was the same. Wake up, work in the fields, eat a little bread, sleep, do it all again tomorrow. The other kids in the village had families. Real families with mothers and fathers who loved them. Kale had nobody like that. He lived alone in a tiny cabin made of old wood and broken stone. The roof leaked when it rained. The walls were so thin you could feel the wind through every crack. But it was home. It was the only home he'd ever known. The villagers treated him like he wasn't there. When he walked through town, people looked away. They wouldn't talk to him. They wouldn't trade with him fairly. They gave him the worst jobs and paid him almost nothing. Kale was invisible to them. And after years of being invisible, Kale started to believe it too. Maybe he really was nobody. Maybe he didn't matter. Maybe nobody would ever care that he existed. Every morning, Kale would walk to the old stone well near the edge of his farm. He'd pull up water in a rusty bucket. The bucket was so old the metal was falling apart. The rope was frayed and thin. But it worked. Barely. Just like everything else in his life. One morning, something was different. The ground near the well looked strange. The dirt was disturbed. It looked like something had pushed up from below. Kale noticed a strange symbol carved into the earth. It wasn't any language he knew. He couldn't read it or understand it. But something about it made his heart beat faster. Something about it made him feel alive for the first time in years. Kale started digging. He used his hands and a broken shovel. His fingers got bloody from the sharp rocks. His back ached from bending over. But he kept digging. Something inside him screamed that he had to find what was down there. It was like the earth itself was calling to him. 3 hours later, his shovel hit something hard. It wasn't a rock. It was something smooth. Something that glowed faintly in the darkness of the hole. Kale pushed away the last bits of dirt and saw it clearly for the first time. It was a pyramid, but not like any pyramid he'd ever heard about. This pyramid was made of a material that seemed to be crystal and metal combined. It was smaller than his hand, but it felt heavy, really heavy, heavier than anything should be, and it glowed with a soft blue light that came from deep inside it. Kale lifted it from the ground. The moment his skin touched the pyramid, everything changed. Light exploded around him. Not regular light. This was bright blue light with streaks of green and purple. It came from the pyramid and from Kale's own body. He could feel energy moving through every part of him. Every cell, every bone, every thought in his head. And then he heard a voice. It wasn't a voice like someone speaking. It was more like thoughts appearing in his mind. Thoughts that weren't his own. The voice was ancient. It was powerful. It was sad. The voice said one thing, and Kale would never forget these words. At last, I have found you. The heir. The chosen one. The one who was meant to carry this gift. Kale fell to his knees. His whole body was shaking. The pyramid grew brighter. The light surrounded him completely. And in that light, he saw flashes of images. Flashing pictures of places he'd never been. Civilizations. Galaxies. Wars that shook entire universes. And in every image, he saw a symbol. The same symbol that had been carved in the earth above the pyramid. The voice spoke again. Your true bloodline is not human. Your true family is not from this world. And your true destiny is far greater than anyone on this planet could ever imagine. And then it stopped. The light faded. The voice was silent. Kale was left kneeling in a hole in the ground with a glowing pyramid in his hands. He was no longer invisible. He was no longer a nobody. The artifact had chosen him, and nothing would ever be the same again. Kale climbed out of the hole slowly. His hands were still shaking. His legs felt weak. The pyramid continued to glow softly in his grip. He looked at it for a long time, trying to understand what just happened. Was he dreaming? Had he lost his mind from working too hard? The sun was still high in the sky. The farm looked exactly the same. The village looked exactly the same. But everything felt different. Everything felt wrong. Or maybe it felt right for the first time ever. Kale walked back to his cabin. He moved like a ghost. Like his body wasn't completely his own anymore. He sat on the edge of his old bed and just stared at the pyramid. The symbols carved into its surface seemed to move and shift when he looked at them. Some parts were clear. Other parts seemed to hide deeper meanings. He tried to put the pyramid down. The moment he let go, panic filled his chest. He felt like he was losing something important. Something vital. His hand grabbed it again immediately. The pyramid felt warm against his skinches. It felt like it was alive. Like it was connected to him somehow. Hours passed. Maybe days. Time felt strange now. Kale began to have memories that weren't his. He saw vast cities made of crystal and light. He saw ships that could travel between stars. He saw a race of beings that looked almost human but weren't quite. Their eyes glowed with ancient knowledge. Their power was beyond imagination. And then he saw war. He saw a terrible conflict. He saw civilizations fall. He saw the last members of an ancient royal family trying to escape. He saw someone placing this pyramid in a safe place. Someone speaking words of hope. Someone saying that one day, a descendant would find it. One day, the bloodline would awaken again. One day, the universe would have another chance. Kale opened his eyes. He was still in his cabin. The pyramid was still in his hand. But he was crying. He didn't know why. He felt sad and angry and hopeful all at the same time. The pyramid began to glow brighter. This time, the light didn't scare him. He let it wash over him. He could feel his body changing, his senses becoming sharper. He could hear the heartbeat of birds perched on the roof. He could smell the grass in the field from 100 miles away. He could feel the energy of every living thing around him. But he could feel something else too. The pyramid showed him that his true family had been destroyed centuries ago. They had been powerful. They had protected entire worlds. But enemies had come. Enemies from the dark spaces between stars. They had killed the royal family. They had scattered the survivors. And then they had disappeared, waiting for the day when a new heir would emerge. The pyramid was a guardian, a teacher, a living record of everything his family had been. And now it had chosen him. But with this knowledge came a terrible burden. Kale could feel it pressing down on him. The pyramid showed him that the enemies who killed his family were still out there. They were still searching. They had been searching for thousands of years. And now that the pyramid was awakening, they would feel it. They would know that an heir had finally been found. Which meant they were coming. Kale stood up. His body felt different now. Stronger, more real. He looked at his hands and saw faint blue lines glowing under his skinches. Veins of energy. Marks of his true heritage. The pyramid spoke again in his mind. You will need training. You will need to understand your powers. You will need to be ready. Because the time of hiding is over. The time of reckoning is coming. And you, Kale, are the only one who can stand against the darkness. Kale walked out of his cabin and looked at the sky. The stars were beginning to appear as the sun set. He had never looked at stars the same way before. Now he knew they were home. Somewhere out there was his true family's legacy. Somewhere out there were worlds that needed him. And he was ready to find them. The village woke up the next morning to something incredible. The sky was different. It shimmered with colors that had never been seen before. Purples and greens and blues mixed together like a painting. People came out of their homes confused and afraid. They didn't understand what was happening. But Kale understood. The pyramid was sending out a signal. A beacon. It was announcing to the universe that the heir had been found. And just as the pyramid warned, the enemies were responding. Kale could feel them approaching. Not physically yet. Not close enough to see. But he could sense their presence in his mind. Like shadows on the edge of consciousness. Like predators catching the scent of prey. He had to leave the village. If he stayed, the darkness would come to his home. It would destroy everything and everyone he knew. The villagers had been cruel to him. They had ignored him. But they didn't deserve to die because of him. That evening, Kale took only what he could carry. A small bag. Some bread. His father's old coat that he had found years ago in the cabin. And the pyramid, which never left his hand. He walked toward the forest that surrounded the village. The trees grew taller and wilder the farther in he went. Soon he couldn't see the village anymore. He was completely alone in the darkness. He found a clearing and stopped. The pyramid began to glow brightly. It showed Kale how to meditate, how to focus his new powers, how to pull the energy from deep within himself and shape it with his will. It showed him how to create a shield of pure force around his body, how to move faster than normal humans could see, how to listen to the whispers of nature itself. For 3 days, Kale trained in that clearing. He barely slept. He barely ate. He was too focused on understanding his abilities. The pyramid was patient with him. It showed him memories of ancient warriors. It showed him techniques that had been lost for thousands of years. But he was running out of time. On the 3rd night, Kale felt the darkness arrive. They came through the sky like black meteors. 5 of them. They were tall and thin and completely wrong-looking. Their skin was dark as midnight. Their eyes glowed red like fire. They wore armor made of materials that didn't belong on any world. They were the hunters, the killers who had destroyed Kale's family. They landed in the clearing and looked at Kale with hunger. They spoke in a language he shouldn't have understood. But the pyramid translated their words directly into his mind. The last heir. At last we have found you. We will end your bloodline. We will erase your family from the universe forever. Kale stood up. He was terrified. His hands were shaking. But he felt something else too. Anger. Rage. The anger of 1,000 years of waiting for this moment. He raised his hand. Energy exploded from his body. Pure blue light shot toward the hunters. They tried to dodge, but they were too slow. The blast hit the largest one and sent it flying backward into the trees. The hunter crashed into tree trunks and fell to the ground. not moving. The other 4 hunters charged at Kale. This was it. This was the moment Kale would discover if he was really strong enough. The pyramid guided his movements like a dance. He didn't think about what to do. His body just moved. It remembered techniques from 1,000 years ago. It remembered how his ancestors had fought. He moved so fast he seemed like a blur. He struck the hunters with palms of force. He kicked with legs that glowed with power. He spun and twisted and turned into a weapon that couldn't be stopped. Within minutes, all 5 hunters were on the ground. They weren't dead. Kale didn't want to kill them. He just wanted them to understand that he was strong, that he wasn't the weak farm boy they had expected, that he had power they couldn't imagine. The largest hunter slowly got to its feet. It looked at Kale with something like respect in its burning red eyes. You are stronger than we thought. Perhaps you truly are the heir. Perhaps the legends are true. The hunter looked at the others. We will report this to the masters. They will be very interested. Then they disappeared. They dissolved into dark smoke and vanished into the sky. Kale fell to his knees. His entire body ached. He was exhausted. But he had won. He had defeated the hunters. He was no longer invisible. He was no longer a nobody. He was the heir. And now the real journey was beginning. Over the next few weeks, Kale learned more from the pyramid than he could have learned in 10 lifetimes. He discovered that his family had ruled an empire that spanned 5 galaxies. They were warriors and builders and scientists. They had created technologies that seemed like magic to normal humans. They had lived for thousands of years, and they had been loved and respected across the known universe. But they had made one terrible mistake. They had trusted someone they shouldn't have trusted. A member of their own family had betrayed them. This betrayer had allied with the dark forces. He had helped them plan the attack that destroyed the royal bloodline. Millions of people had died. Entire worlds had been burned. Only a few members of the family had escaped. They had hidden their last heir on a distant planet. A planet so remote and unknown that no one would ever think to look there. A planet called Earth. Kale was that last heir. His real mother had been a princess. His real father had been a warrior king. They had given up everything to protect him. They had hidden him in a human body. They had given him to humans to raise, hoping he would be safe. But they had died when he was just a baby. He had no memories of them. He had never even known they existed. The pyramid held their memories. It held the memories of his entire family. With each day that passed, Kale understood more about who he really was. He understood that he carried the weight of an entire civilization on his shoulders. The hunters continued to come. They came in groups of 5, then groups of 10, then groups of 20. Each time, Kale defeated them. Each time, he grew stronger. The pyramid taught him how to access deeper levels of his power, how to move through space itself, how to heal his own wounds, how to sense danger from miles away. But Kale realized something important. He couldn't keep fighting forever. There would always be more hunters. The darkness would never stop coming. As long as he was alive, they would search for him. He needed to go on offense instead of defense. The pyramid showed him where the hunters came from. It showed him a massive space station hidden in the dark void between stars. This station was the base of operations for the forces of darkness. Thousands of soldiers worked there. Thousands of weapons were stored there. It was a fortress that seemed impossible to attack. But Kale had something they didn't have. He had the pyramid, and he had the ancient knowledge of his family, and he had the burning desire to protect the people of Earth. Even though the villagers had been cruel to him, he couldn't let them be destroyed. This was his home now. These were his people to protect. Kale made a plan. He would travel to the space station. He would infiltrate it carefully. He would find the leader of the hunters, and he would challenge them to single combat. If Kale won, the hunters would be forced to retreat. If Kale lost, at least the rest of Earth would be safe. Because the hunters cared only about him. They didn't care about the planet. It took 2 months to prepare. The pyramid helped Kale build a ship from the forest around him. Not a normal ship. A ship made of living crystal that grew from his own thoughts. A ship that responded to his will. A ship that could travel through space faster than light. On the night before his departure, Kale stood at the edge of the forest and looked back at the village. Lights glowed in the windows. People were safe in their homes. They had no idea that a battle had been fought to protect them. They had no idea that one person had sacrificed everything for them. Kale didn't need them to know. It was enough that he knew. It was enough that he was doing the right thing. He climbed into the crystal ship. The pyramid glowed brighter than it ever had before. Together, they lifted off from the ground. The ship rose higher and higher until the village disappeared beneath the clouds. And then Kale was gone. He was no longer the forgotten farm boy. He was no longer invisible. He had become something far greater than he ever imagined. He had become the heir to an ancient empire, and he was ready to face his destiny. The space station was exactly as the pyramid had shown him. Massive, dark, filled with thousands of soldiers who had spent their whole lives hunting his kind. Kale landed his ship secretly in a hidden docking bay. He used stealth techniques from the pyramid to move through the corridors unseen. Soldiers walked past him without noticing. Alarms didn't sound. Guards didn't question him. It was like he was a ghost moving through the station. But then he reached the central chamber. The leader was waiting for him. Kale hadn't expected this. How could they have known he was coming? The figure sat on a massive throne made of dark crystal. It was tall, stronger than the other hunters. But as Kale looked closer, he realized something shocking. The leader was human. Or at least, it had been human once. This person had been changed. Enhanced. They had been given the power of the ancient dark forces. Their eyes glowed with malicious intelligence. Their presence seemed to darken the room around them. "So the heir finally comes to face me," the leader said. "Did the pyramid tell you who I really am?" Kale didn't answer. He raised his hand, preparing for combat. "I am Marcus," the leader continued. "I was once a member of your family. 1,000 years ago, I was passed over for leadership. I was told I wasn't good enough. So I made a choice. I allied with the darkness, and I swore that your family would never rule again." Kale felt anger rising in his chest. This being had destroyed everything. His family, entire civilizations, billions of innocent people. "Then let's end this," Kale said. "You and me. Right now." They fought. The battle was beyond anything Kale had experienced. Marcus was old and experienced. He knew techniques that even the pyramid didn't fully know. They moved through the chamber with incredible speed. They struck with power that shattered the walls. The whole station shook with the force of their combat. Hours passed. Maybe days. Time lost all meaning. Kale was winning. Slowly. But Marcus was becoming desperate. And desperate people make dangerous choices. "If I cannot rule," Marcus screamed, "then no one will." Marcus activated a device on his throne. The station began to shake violently. Explosions started throughout the facility. Marcus was destroying the entire station. He was willing to kill everyone inside, including himself, just to prevent Kale from claiming victory. Kale made his choice in that moment. Instead of continuing to fight, he grabbed Marcus with his power. Instead of attacking, he lifted Marcus up and carried him toward the escape pods. Instead of revenge, he chose mercy. "What are you doing?" Marcus screamed. "Saving your life," Kale said. He threw Marcus into an escape pod and activated it. Marcus was ejected from the station and sent hurtling into space. Kale didn't kill him. He let him live. He let him float through the void forever, knowing that the heir had chosen a different path. Then Kale ran. He raced through the corridors as the station fell apart around him. He felt the pressure building. He felt the danger. But he moved faster than fast. He moved like lightning. He made it to his ship just as the entire station exploded behind him. The blast hit the ship. It threw him through space. But he survived. The pyramid protected him. His power protected him. And then there was silence. Kale floated in the empty darkness of space. The station was gone. The hunters were scattered. The immediate threat was over. But Kale knew this wasn't the end. Darkness would always exist somewhere in the universe. There would always be enemies. There would always be people who tried to take power for themselves. But Kale wasn't afraid anymore. He had been a nobody. He had been invisible. He had been forgotten. But the artifact had chosen him. And in being chosen, he had learned something important. He had learned that power without mercy is just tyranny. That strength without compassion is just destruction. He had learned that true greatness comes from protecting others, from making the hard choices, from choosing mercy when revenge would be easier. Kale turned his ship around and headed back to Earth. He would return to the village. He would tell the people what he had done. He would explain why he had hidden the truth from them. And then he would leave again, but this time he would leave with their blessing. Because he was ready now, ready to take his place as the heir to his family's empire, ready to rebuild what had been destroyed, ready to protect not just Earth, but all the worlds that needed him. The pyramid glowed softly in his hands. "Well done, heir," the pyramid said. "You have chosen the path of a true king, not the path of conquest, but the path of protection, the path of hope." And for the first time since he was a baby, Kale felt like he belonged somewhere. He felt like he had a purpose. He felt like maybe, just maybe, everything that had happened to him, all the pain, all the loneliness, all the struggle had been leading him to this moment. He was no longer nobody. He was Kale, the heir, the chosen one, the last hope of an ancient family. And the universe would never be the same. But here's the twist that changes everything. Years later, Kale discovers something hidden in the pyramid's deepest memories. The dark forces that hunted him. They weren't evil because they were born evil. They were created evil. Someone had deliberately engineered them. Someone had wanted his family destroyed for a specific reason. Kale realizes that his journey is far from over. That rebuilding his empire means uncovering who really orchestrated the destruction of his family. That the real enemy is still out there, waiting. This discovery transforms Kale from a protector into an investigator, from a defender into a seeker of truth. It shows us that power is nothing without understanding. That heroism isn't about winning battles. It's about asking the right questions. It's about having the courage to face uncomfortable truths. Kale's story reminds us that sometimes the greatest destiny isn't thrust upon us. We choose it. So what's the biggest takeaway from Kale's incredible journey? First, your past doesn't define your future. Kale was invisible and forgotten, but he became irreplaceable. Second, real power comes from protecting others, not controlling them. Third, asking questions is just as important as fighting battles. Kale's story is a reminder that inside every ordinary person might be something extraordinary waiting to wake up. The question is, will you recognize it when it appears? Will you have the courage to accept your destiny? If this story absolutely blew your mind, Smash that like button right now. Your support helps us create more incredible content for you. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another mind-bending science fiction story. We release new episodes every single week. And here's something special. If you want to dig deeper into stories like this, join our exclusive community. We share unreleased scripts, behind-the-scenes content, and personal messages from storytellers who create these narratives. Link in the description. Drop a comment below. If you could have any hidden power or ancient ability, what would it be? Let's start a conversation in the community. Thank you for watching. You're incredible. And remember, your story is far from over. Maybe you're the chosen one too.